There is a way to reach your ideal client, and I call it dog whistle marketing. Basically, where you're going to speak to that specific client. There's going to be a lot of people that will see this, but your ideal client is going to know that you're speaking to them. We're going to go through over 7 specific strategies and ways that you can identify them, start speaking to them, and start converting them into some transactions. All right, when I started, I talked about dog whistle. Basically, dog whistle is just something where if you blow into this specific whistle, certain people don't hear it, but dogs do. So what I want to do is I'm going to talk to you about exactly what we can do on a marketing perspective, from a marketing perspective, in your real estate business, with your content, with the things that you're doing, that really is going to gather the attention and really speak directly to those ideal clients. So what do we do when we're starting with this? The first thing we want to do is number one, we got to know where we're starting from. So we have to get a clear understanding of who it is that is your ideal client. Now, the way that you do this, because I think what happens a lot of times when people get into real estate, or sometimes when we lose momentum, is we're trying to be everything for everybody. Now listen, I'm not telling you shouldn't do transactions that are maybe outside of this group of your ideal client, but your marketing should be directed specifically to a specific niche, or niche as people say, or ideal client. So let's talk about that. Who is your ideal client? I want you to think back. What is the favorite transaction that you've ever worked with? Who is that person? What did they do? What type of home did they buy? Was it a first-time home buyer? Was it an investor? Was it somebody that was upsizing, or maybe their family was growing and they needed to get a larger house? Or was it somebody that was downsizing, or maybe somebody that was buying a second home? Whatever it is, I want you to think back. Who is that ideal client? Now, I will tell you, a lot of times, that ideal client is going to be someone who you are right now, or someone that you've done this particular thing in your past. So, for instance, for me, throughout my career, when I was first starting out, I loved working with first-time homebuyers because I was a first-time homebuyer. As I began to buy an investment property, I enjoyed working with investors because they were interested in the same things I were at that very time, and I was looking for them as well as for me opportunities. And then when it was a time when I was buying a second home, I was looking for the place that I would have that our family would spend time, and what was it that I was looking for, and I understood the needs of those clients at a different level. So it doesn't necessarily mean, because listen, I've seen this a lot of times where people, when they're starting out, they want to work with luxury. I don't want to discourage you from doing that, but you have to become someone who completely understands the mindset of what's going on with that person that you're trying to attract. So as you do this, write it out. That's going to take us to the second step, which is, now that we know who this person is, let's identify what is it that are their pain points, their desires, their wants, and their needs. So let's break this down. Very different set of circumstances for a first-time homebuyer versus an investor. So what is it that they're looking for? What's the difficulty they have that maybe you can give them a solution to? You know, there's a quote out there that talks about, and I'm going to basically just put this in my own words, but basically it is, don't speak to the product, don't speak to the house, in other words. Speak to the situation and the solution to whatever the problem is that your ideal client has. So let's go through and think about this. First-time homebuyer, they don't know what they qualify for. So how can you speak to them in a way that gets them the understanding that they can get pre-qualified? They don't know if they have enough credit or if they have enough revenue. These are the things where you can speak to those things. An investor, they aren't sure what type of financing in some cases they can get. They aren't sure of what they should be looking for. What are the things that most people miss when they're buying their first investment property or their 10th investment property? You see, when you begin to understand what the problems and the needs are, and you begin to speak to the solutions for those things, now we're beginning to speak a language that's different, that absolutely catches that attention of that ideal client of yours. Right along those lines, now that we're speaking to that person, let's get very specific. What are the trigger words, or specifically, what are the keywords they might use? Because if you're using YouTube videos specifically, and now on just about every single platform on social media, a lot of people are using keyword search to be able to find out information on the things they're doing. Look, there's a big difference when we're on Instagram and we're just putting out an Instagram reel and people are just scrolling and we're just disruptive marketing, versus if we're putting and we're being very specific with keywords we're using, and they're looking on YouTube or they're searching on Instagram, where when they do that search, our video or our content comes up first. That's, now we're doing something where this is very specifically targeting the person who's searching for, and we're giving the information they're looking for. So let's talk about these trigger words, so to speak. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I'm going to start and just kind of go down the line. First-time home buyers. What is it they're going to be searching for? How much does a first-time home buyer have to qualify for? Or maybe they're wondering, renting versus buying, pros and cons. Buying versus renting, What are the things that people forget before they make their move? Whatever it is, think about the keywords, think about titles, because when we start thinking about the titles, now we start hitting those trigger and those keywords. Now let's go towards investors. What are they thinking about? Words like cap rate, words like free cash flow. Those are words that are trigger words that will capture their attention. Now let's think about somebody that maybe is thinking about that has got a new family member coming and they need to expand or buy a house that has an extra bedroom. Is your family expanding and your housing needs are as well? That's something we can do there. Looking for an extra bedroom. Looking for an opportunity to upsize your home size for a new family member that's coming. Think about some of the keywords or the search things that people would be doing, where if they see that title and they're thinking about that is in line with their situation, then that's going to grab their attention and they're going to watch that video or consume that content. Now let's think about some of the other things. If somebody that is downsizing, housing needs changing because you're an empty nester, some of those keywords like empty nest, some of those keywords like downsizing, whatever it is, think about the keywords, begin to do your content based on those keywords, and those are those triggers that will capture their attention and give you the opportunity to speak directly to them. All right, so I've been mostly talking about buyers there. Let's talk about some of the trigger words for specific home sellers. And so let's talk about some of the needs or the pain points that a lot of them are concerned about. Wondering what you need to do to be able to sell your home and buy another home, or maybe you're farming a specific neighborhood and you want to include that information. It would be like, want the inside scoop on all that's housing in watercolor subdivision, wondering about the hidden gems and opportunities to sell your home in watercolor for the highest possible price, whatever that is. Get specific on the areas, the subdivisions, the keywords, and all of a sudden now you're going to be speaking to that audience you're looking to speak to. Number 4 is to build a lead magnet. Now, when we're talking about lead magnet is what can you offer that is going to be of value to these folks, that is specific to their situation, that is going to give you the opportunity to move them from the video to being able to capture their information, their email address, so you can continue to add value to them. This also gives us the ability to understand their needs based on what it is that they request. So I'm going to give you some lead magnets. We used to use these. 7 things every homeowner needs to know before putting their home on the market. Now, the person who does that is someone who's getting ready to potentially sell their home. Again, we're speaking to that. Another one might be wanting the inside scoop on everything before the general public knows about watercolor subdivision. Now we're speaking specifically to someone who's interested in watercolor subdivision. Wondering the 7 biggest mistakes buyers make before buying their first home. That's a great one when you're trying to attract those. Generate a lead magnet. Now, if you're looking for a way to capture those leads, there's a number of different ways to do this. There's a number of ways that you can build a capture page that will automatically send that information to those folks. I use lead pages to build these pages. So for example, now that you've got your lead magnet, what can you do with it? Social media is a great place to do this. Instagram stories give you the ability to link to, so you can link to that lead pages where you could capture their email address. And you would have an Instagram story that would be something like this. If you're considering selling your home in the next 6 to 12 months, make sure you get my 7 things to do before you even consider selling your home. Then you just have the link that goes in there. Whatever it is, make sure once you've got a lead magnet that's going to have the ability for them to raise their hand and for you to capture their information, put in a process to keep in touch with them once you capture those leads. Number 5 is that consistency always breeds trust. This is not a one and done deal. You're not going to be able to speak to that person, that ideal client, with one piece of content and be able to capture them. Yeah, you're going to catch lightning in a bottle every so often, but if you're consistently speaking to those folks, then now you're going to have the ability to really build that trust that we're looking for. Odds are it's going to take 4 to 7 times of them seeing you that they're speaking specifically to the situation they're in for you to really grab their attention. So if you're going to, for instance, have a specific subdivision that you're going to be the expert on for buyers and sellers, you need to be talking about unknown facts about watercolor subdivision, or buyer and seller statistics for the last 5 years for watercolor subdivision, or 3 things that people should know about that most buyers don't realize before buying in watercolor subdivision. Hey, 4 or 5 different things that a seller needs to do before getting their house on the market in watercolor. Again, we're just speaking in multiple pieces of content consistently over time towards that ideal client, and that's going to not only capture their attention, it's going to build the trust that we're looking for to make sure that we can then convert them to clients. Number 6 is kind of a reminder, but give them more of what they want. Now, as you begin to do these types of content and you begin to get this out here, notice what it is that they respond to. If you're seeing that you've done 5 pieces of content, look back and see which is the one that performed the best, had the most engagement, and generated the most leads, had the most positive feedback that you got from those people that were absolutely consuming that content. Now, what we've done then is to understand what they like. Give them more of what they like. Understand the lowest performing piece of content you had, make sure you don't do any more of that as well. Continue to give them more of what they like in a consistent basis, and now our results will continue to get better and better as well. Number 7 is probably the most important, is to tell the stories of the people like them that you've helped. In other words, give them the ability to see other people like themselves that you've helped, because that's going to give them the ability to see themselves working with you. This is not just having someone tell the story basically, or of what you did with them. It's you telling that story. Hey, I had a client of mine that reached out to me when they were getting ready to consider putting their house on the market. Immediately what we did is we began to think about who was the person who would be the ideal buyer that would give them the opportunity to maximize their sales price and sell their home in the least amount of time with the least amount of hassles. Once we identified that person, we then moved to the point of beginning to put our marketing plan together. We did our professional photography and our video. If you'd like to see the video, you can see it over here. You can just give them an example. And then you talk about exactly what you did to launch that listing that ended up generating 7 showings in 4 days, 2 offers, one particular buyer that made sense for them, where they were able to sell their house at the highest price with the least amount of hassles in the least amount of time. Again, we've shown them an example. We've given them the example of how you can help them, and they begin to put themselves in the shoes of that person so that they see themselves working with you. Listen, if you're going to have those ideal clients, it's going to take you getting on purpose with the content you're producing and focusing in on meeting their needs. If you'll do this, I know that your ideal business is just around the corner. I hope this has been helpful, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. I specifically chose the video below for you because it builds on the one you just watched. I hope it's helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.